Hi, this is Alan Olson, and welcome to American Dreams. I'm visiting here today with Porter Ellett. Welcome to today's show.
Thanks. It's good to be here. I'm glad you invited me to be on the show. Hopefully we can do some good things.
So Porter, before we get into your path of how you came to join the Kansas City Chiefs coaching staff, can you give us an update on your path in life and where you went to school and how you ended up in the Kansas area?
Yeah, for sure. So I ended up here actually through Coach Reed and the Kansas City Chiefs, but we were at Baylor University, Waco, Texas. I was attending grad school there, studying sports management, and then working in the facilities at the football stadium, McLean Stadium, as I was studying. So that's how I ended up here. Coach Reed called me, took the job, came to Kansas City.
That's a big move coming from Baylor, Texas, up here. Did you grow up in Texas or Kansas or?
No, yeah. So I grew up on I grew up on a farm in central Utah, really small town called Loa, Utah, about 400 people. I think on Wikipedia or something it says 500, but I don't know. Not very many people. And then after I went to high school and did everything there, I went to BYU for graduate school. For college. But before I started, I served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Went to BYU, studied economics, ended up my very last semester at BYU. I had 1 credit hour or 2 credit hours I needed to finish in economics. And I ended up failing the class, so I had to go back for a whole nother semester. But I needed to find a job, so I ended up working for the football team. And that's when I fell in love with football. Ended up realizing that I wanted to work in football. So after I graduated, I worked at Goldman Sachs for almost a year. I worked in their tax department as a tax analyst. And I came home from work every day, and was working a lot of hours. And then I was commuting from Provo to Salt Lake City. So I was a lot of work. And my wife one night, she asked me if I really loved what I was doing. And at first I said, yeah, I love what I do. It provides a good living for me and it will support our family and we'll be okay. And I like the people I work with. I kind of went through the whole list and she said, but do you love what you're doing? I said, no, I don't really love taxes. So I kind of went through that with her and she said, well, what would you do if you could do anything? I said, well, I think I'd coach. If I could coach, I'd go back and do that. But I grew up in a family where my dad coached me in high school, baseball, basketball, coached me all growing up. And I knew that there wasn't any money in coaching. So I kind of told her that. I said, there's no money in it. And she said, well, there is, right? If you do it in college or you do it professionally. I said, yeah, but I don't know how you go about doing that. And she said, well, let's figure it out. So I started to do some research on my own, was going to go to grad school to be a coach or to be like a GM, personnel type of person, work the business side more. And she said, okay, well, let's do it. So we ended up at grad school studying sports management at Baylor, kind of left my job at Goldman Sachs, moved to Texas to pursue, kind of this pie in the sky dream. But I wanted to coach, and that's how I ended up, doing this. So.
Now, you mentioned you did baseball and football. You were active in all the sports during high school?
Yeah, well, so kind of a funny story. My high school was so small that we didn't have football. We played fall baseball because the weather in, higher elevation Utah, the fall is way better weather for baseball. With high school baseball seasons the way they are in the spring, we would have had snow, clear until it was playoff time pretty much. So we played fall baseball and we didn't have enough kids to support baseball and football in the fall. So we didn't even have a football team. But I did play baseball. I did play basketball. I ran track and cross country. And I played football on my own, played catch. I had schools that were a little bigger in the area. They tried to get me to come play football, but I wasn't willing to travel and then also give up baseball with all my teammates. So I just stayed and played baseball. But And so I didn't play football. Coached baseball, coached basketball after high school as well.
It's interesting that you didn't play the sport, but you ended up in the sport for coaching. So,
Yeah.
what is it like being part of a professional team coaching staff?
It's really, you learn a lot every day from the good people that are around you. But you also learn very quickly that people, they don't, players and coaches alike, they don't so much care about, your background or, I haven't ever really had a player say like, well, you didn't play, so you don't know. They really care about if you can make them better, which is, refreshing to me because they're not going to judge me on, oh man, he didn't even play in high school. Because to them, that doesn't matter. What does matter is, can you make me a better player today? And then also being surrounded by the coaches that I have been surrounded by, that's been a huge blessing because they've taught me, how to coach, what's important, what isn't important, what to focus on, what works, what doesn't. So that's been a huge blessing for me.
There's the reputation with Kansas City is that they have an excellent coaching staff, and the result is the team has performed very well. How do you get the players acting as a team? Everyone there on the team is good; they're in the pro leagues, but how do you get them to act as a team?
Well, I think personally with us, it's amazing the leadership that we have as far as players go as well. We have great coaches that, do a great job, but also the players take it to heart and they're not entitled. They work hard. Our star players show up and they want to win. They care about winning. They care about, doing things the right way. Not only that, but they set the tone for all the younger guys and all the guys that are, role players. And that's huge, especially in football. That's actually why I told Carly when she asked me what sport I wanted to coach or work in, I said football because of the team aspect, right? You can't, basketball, you can get away with one or two stars and then, everybody else can be, whatever. And then they can have the ball 95% of the time. Baseball, it's pitching and, one or two hitters really, they get the job done. Football's not that way. Like everybody has to do their job or it doesn't work out. So for our vets and our star players, their understanding of that the younger guys, the role players, they matter. That's huge for us. And so I would say the team, the unity we have as a team is a culture set by our leaders, players and coaches alike. And Coach Reed, Coach Reed's at the head of all of it. And he sets the tone for everybody. The things that matter, matter.
They say behind every great man is an even greater woman. Can you tell us about how you met Carly?
Yeah, I'd love to. So at BYU, I got home from serving my 2-year mission. And when you get home and you're from a small area, they have you go back to church and talk at all the congregations. So I actually didn't go to our congregation at BYU until I'd been home for almost a month and a half. So I went from, church to church and talked. And then she was at school and I was in her same congregation, but she didn't know. And while she was there, she would go visit her grandparents who live close on Sundays, and they would, watch Sports Center and watch sports and hang out. And one night, her grandpa, he went downstairs in their basement. He found this old magazine of me in high school. So 2008, 2007-ish, they did an article on me because I played baseball with one hand. So they did this story, and he went down and found the magazine and brought it up to her and was like, hey, you should read this article. So she kind of took a quick look at it. She's like, yeah, seems cool. And he was like, well, he's going to go to BYU, so you should look him up. Or he's at BYU right now. You should look him up. And she just kind of laughed. It's like, there's 32,000 undergrads at BYU. Like I can't look up this guy. How would I do that, Grandpa? Just Google one arm guy at BYU, And he was like, well, I don't know, but maybe, look him up, see if you could go on a date with him. And he knew about me partly because he worked with my aunt. So they kind of set us up a little bit. But she, was like, well, whatever, I'll never meet this guy. And one of the Sundays when I was finally back for church at our own congregation at BYU, I knocked on her door collecting money for the church, tithes, fast offerings, tithings from members of the church. And she recognized me and she said, "Are you the guy from the magazine?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she just kind of laughed, and in her head she was like, "My grandpa's never going to believe this." So we started dating. Our first like 4 or 5 dates were sporting events. So she loves sports. She encouraged me, to pursue a career in sports. And to be honest, she takes the wins and losses like as personal or more personal than I do. So she's invested and she loves it, and I'm grateful for her. And I mean, without her, just like I talked about earlier, I would still probably be working in taxes at Goldman Sachs, which is a great job, but it's not where my passion was.
Porter, you've overcome a lot in life, and the fact that you've reached a pinnacle of being with a very successful organization as a coach is a great statement. If you give a message to people today that as they're going through the pandemic or their struggles in life, what would it be? How would you coach that individual?
That's a good question. I mean, I thought about this a lot kind of recently, because we all face challenges, even like within my own family. I have, a little girl and a son, 2 and 4, and they have their own little challenges that they face as well. My wife. But I think that the best thing that you can do is just keep moving forward, like just keep waking up in the morning and keep doing the things that you do, like set a routine, set goals for yourself, and just get up and do those things. And I think you'll be shocked by the sense of fulfillment that you have and the amount of power and strength that gives you. And I think that far too often in the world today, we're allowed to, I don't rely on excuses more than just relying on our own persistence and our own ability to overcome things. And for me, the last couple of years, COVID has given a lot of people a great excuse, not to get out of bed in the morning, not to pursue your goals, not to work through a challenge, which is, it is hard. The pandemic's been hard on everyone, and it's changed the way that we've lived and the way that we've had to do things. But I think that would be the advice I would offer is, just keep moving forward, keep progressing in your own ways. Get up in the morning, get out of bed, work out, do your routine and set your routine and just continue to work and push. And that's kind of, through my whole life, that's kind of been what's pushed me through challenges that I've faced, like just keep progressing and keep pushing forward. And you'll be surprised of, I think, the joy and happiness you receive from that sense of fulfillment. I did what I set out to do today. And that's big.
It's great advice. Great advice. So when everything's said and done, Porter, when you look back at life, what do you want to be known for?
I just think I'd like to have a positive impact on the world in general. I'd like to be known as a good coach, a good, all that stuff, a good father, a good husband, a good member of, my church, my community. But I think just having a positive impact on those that I left behind, because that's what really carries on is, did you do good while you were here? And did you leave something good for other people to see and build on? It's funny because Coach Reed, that's what he is essentially. He does a lot of winning, he does a lot of that, but he also sets a path for coaches to follow. He has like a great group of coaches that have come from his staffs and that are on his current staffs, and great players that love him and adore him. But he sees the value in, my legacy is what I leave behind. It's not, what I'm doing in this moment. So, but in order to leave a legacy behind, you have to handle the moment that you're in. So I'd like to also, do that, do great now, and then also leave something great for the generation that comes after me.
Beautiful. I've been visiting here today with Porter Ellett of the Kansas City Chiefs. Porter, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's been an honor.